and you see large crowds of people there. And this is happening simultaneously with President Trump's guests arriving at the White House, where they're going to sign normalization deals. Officials from the UAE, the UAE official is already there. He arrived almost a couple hours ago, and then we have another one from Bahrain, and Netanyahu also arrived a few minutes ago, and there we go. We got this protest rally in front of the White House against this normalization deal between a number of Arab states and Israel. So, Shabir, thank you for that. Just, if you allow me, I'll go to Ontario to Jason Unruhe, as a political analyst, also joining us, and ask Jason a question. Jason, we talked about Saudi Arabia. We have UAE so far and Bahrain. Saudi Arabia, you know, it allowed this. Actually, the preparations were being made. There was this flight that went through the Saudi airspace. The relations happened there, but maybe not in a very open way. But is Saudi Arabia also going to follow suit like the UAE and Bahrain and publicize relations with Tel Aviv?
I would say that there is almost a 100% chance that that will take place. I think it's been pretty clear that Saudi Arabia and Israel have been working behind the scenes for a great deal of time now, trying to undermine many of the legitimate Islamic governments all through the Middle East, even the secular ones for that matter, the more secular kind, like in Syria, and certainly we're plotting the destruction of Jamahiriya in Libya. So they have been behind this. Both of them, they have money going into ISIS for the specific purpose of undermining independent governments to ally them to U.S. imperialism. It's more like an imperialist bloc. It's the United States extending power across the Middle East using its proxies, Israel and Saudi Arabia. They get preferential treatment or junior partners of imperialism, if you want to put it like that. Mm-hmm. So there's already been this cooperation for some time, but there's always been this veneer of Israel is the extremist Islamists, and Israel is the extremist Zionists, and Saudi Arabia is the extremist Islamists, and therefore they would never ever cooperate and do anything, when really religion means nothing to the ruling classes of both countries. This is all about money. This is all about power. This is all about working together with the United States to forward their own interests, piggybacking off of those of the U.S. So I really see this as something that essentially already exists. There's harsh words, but the substance is far different than the form. So I definitely could see that in the future there might be like an official announcement of a kind of alliance between the two, a normalization. But I mean, let's be honest, behind the scenes it's already taking place.
Mm-hmm. And Jason, you've heard of President Trump being nominated for Nobel Peace Prize. Isn't that a joke? What peace are they talking about?
Well, that would be, yeah, I mean, joke could be a word to describe it. I would call it frankly, an insult to the concept of peace. But then again, a lot of warmongers have not only been nominated for that prize, but they have won it as well. Obama was given one, and what did he do? He invaded 7 countries. So, you know. The history of the Nobel Peace Prize is a very questionable to begin with, but to even give it to someone like Trump, who has not done anything to foster peace, a lot of nice fluffy words with regards to the DPRK, but nothing of substance there, has continued the brutal sanctions against the country, has still carried out the unpopular military occupation of the South, and to turn around and taking countries that are known to be incredibly brutal towards their own people, and making them, shake hands with, or having them just shake hands with Israel is, it's not really an act of peace. I mean, as it was, Bahrain and Israel were not at war anyway. And to be honest, they already had unofficial diplomatic, security and trade relations anyway, but nothing was official. But I guess those are certainly becoming official now.
So what pushes them? Actually, that's a question to actually publicize the relations that they already had, and what are they receiving in return? So far, it was only the rage and indignation of some Arab states, especially the Palestinians, who called us a stab in their back.
Well, definitely that's been the case. Now, historically, the Arab states have refused to normalize relations with Israel until it guarantees Palestinian national rights. But as we've seen with these deals with the Emirates and with Bahrain, there is no consideration for the Palestinians whatsoever. If that's historically been their position, which it has been, it's certainly not the case as well. Now, these countries are looking for perhaps a better relationship with the United States by turning around and saying, "Okay, we recognize your friend Israel, so we can have a better deal." For examples, we saw with the UAE purchased high-tech weapons, including Reaper drones, EA-18G Growler jets, and F-35 fighter planes. I'm certain that this purchase would not have been allowed unless the UAE had signed an agreement saying, "Okay, we officially recognize Israel. We'll be on the same page. We'll normalize relations as a way of possibly of promising not to use those weapons against Israel or against Israel's interests." So I
Hmm.
think really that's what this is about: is perhaps gaining better access to the armories of the United States, as we have seen. Bahrain. They the family is basically ruled by uh, martial law, as we saw previously several years ago with the Arab uprising in a country that was going through generally the Middle East at the time. Uh, Bahrain authorized 1,500 troops from Saudi Arabia and the UAE to enter the country to essentially brutally crush those protests. So, we're not exactly, Israel isn't exactly allying with defenders of peace and democracy in this regard. But I think that given the way that a lot of these countries have proceeded, I think they're looking for a more beneficial trade with the United States. I think that that might in the end be the substance here. If you try to give this legitimacy to Israel, will give you a better position, and then in return, we get to be able to turn around and say, "Oh, you see, the other Muslims, they don't like the Palestinians, so see, even their own people don't like them, so therefore Israel's justified continuing to carry on with its genocide against them." And I think that's the real essence behind this.
Now, let me ask Jason Unruhe. Jason, we have a Palestinian official calling today as another black day for Palestinians, and he said the Palestinians are going to mourn this. So I wonder, I mean, what you expect your fellow Arabs and fellow Muslim countries is to stand by you, not to turn their back and join the enemy.
Well, that's certainly been the problem here. I mean, Israel has essentially been spared international accountability at least 43 times for its actions. I mean, you can make all the rulings you want against what Israel does that's inhuman, that's monstrous, but in the end, you have to be able to enforce it somehow. And it seems that the Arab League are more interested in power and politics than doing the right thing here. And this is part and parcel of Arab nationalism, which, in the opinion of many, including myself, that the breaking down of the Arab world into nation states, into individual nations, has been something that's had a very negative effect. And I think that this is one of those right now. Obviously, some kind of a pan Arabism or some kind of pan Islamism would not tolerate something like this. But once you break things down into individualized nations with a ruling elite among top of them, very moneyed interests, then you have something very detached from what it is that the people are like. And I would blame Arab nationalism for this, which was largely set up by the UK many decades ago. But the Arab League is being incredibly short-sighted here. Uh, just because they're friends with the U.S. now does not mean that they will be friends with them forever. I mean, the U.S. can never really be trusted. Saddam Hussein was one of them. and now he's dead. I believe, what is it, back in March 2008, Gaddafi had given a speech at the Arab League warning. He talked about there was no weapons of mass destruction. Saddam was basically a prisoner of war, and he was executed. Why wasn't anybody questioning that? And he asked a lot of the Arab leagues, well, why are you just simply going along with this, knowing that it violates international law? And he said, and I remember this quite clearly, he said, any one of you could be next. And the
Hmm.
camera panned towards Bashar al-Assad, and he was laughing. He was laughing at the idea that any of them could be next, and where is Syria now?
Hmm.
It's under that very same the barrel of the U.S. gun, backed up by Saudi Arabia and Israel. So a lot of these Arab League states are making a terrible mistake. Not only is it morally reprehensible to turn their backs on the Palestinians in this case, but tactically, in the end, you don't matter to the United States. As soon as you become inconvenient, they will cut you loose, and if not outright declare war, they'll create a proxy war. They'll create, fake color revolutions, anything to them in general. So this it's been something very terrible for the Palestinian people. What little defense that they actually have. I mean, when you're defending the Palestinian people, or when they're defending themselves, they're going up against the titan that is the U.S. empire, and any kind of support that you could scrape together, no matter how small, is very significant. And the loss of even just the facade of support is extremely devastating.
Hmm. Okay, let me put a question to Shabir Sanali and Lester. Shabir, some analysts are predicting, so far we have had the UAE and Bahrain signing this normalization deal that's going to be signed soon with the Tel Aviv regime, and some are predicting that maybe some more Arab states are going to do that and follow suit. They're citing countries like Sudan, like Oman and Morocco. Of course, some of them are thought to be willing to follow suit, and some are being pressured by the Trump administration to do so. What do you expect to happen?
I think that's absolutely right. I think a lot of these oil fields and shopping malls with flags will be signing up to this club, if you like.
Mm.
But what I find very interesting, looking at the pictures that you're broadcasting, is I see not one Palestinian in this, big thing. And the UAE and Bahrain both have said that, oh, we're doing this to help the Palestinians. Habibi, where are the Palestinians if you're helping them? If you're helping them and they're so happy about it and they really want to be helped by you in this way, then why have they not attended? Why have they declared this, as you said, to be another black day, another day that they will
Mm-hmm.
mourn? And on that subject, I think the time for mourning will come at a later stage. I think now the time is for resistance. Since 1948, the Palestinians have been mourning. They now need to start doing something about it, because mourning clearly isn't cutting it. It's not enough. They need to actually take firm steps to reclaim their land. And not just the Palestinians. I think all of the people need to, all of the free people of the world. And again, like I say, it's not about religion. This covers, like, if you look at the way the Christians in Palestine, in occupied Palestine, are treated, it's despicable. We saw what happened to the Christians when the Zionist-attached Takfiris ran rampant over Syria. They were killing Christians as well as Muslims. So, and it's not Jewish people that are, to blame for this. Zionism doesn't know a religion. It might profess, just like Saudi professes to be Muslim, but it couldn't be further from Islam. The same way Israel, so-called, professes to be Jewish, it couldn't be further from Judaism. So, people need to get over this whole religion issue and decide and understand that this is a political issue. Religion is being used as a tool, and all the free people of the world are standing against this. UAE, Bahrain, Saudi, these people have no real interest in anything except furthering, like Jason said, furthering their own personal positions and empowering themselves. They don't care about Mr. Khalifa doesn't care about the little Bahraini families sitting in Muharraq or in Sitra or in Manama or something, struggling to make ends meet. The same way Makhtoum and Nahyan don't give a monkeys about the poor people from the Arabs. I'm not talking about from the immigrants. I'm talking about from the natives of the land who, are sitting in, for example, Ras Al Khaimah or in parts of Dubai and places where they've literally can't even afford to get food. The same way that Trump doesn't care about his own people who don't have food, Netanyahu doesn't care about the Israelis. He's only interested in his position. And the same is for all of these Western oligarchies and these corrupt capitalist entities. So, and I think, to be fair, I want to echo the point that Jason also made regarding that this started when they started carving up the West Asia region into this, that, and the other. And the lines, the demarcations were so unnatural that they traumatized the people, and they put all of these clowns like the Khalifa and Nahyan and what's his name, Hussein of Jordan, and all of these clowns, or the Al Saud, in charge without so much as a by your leave of the people, and all of a sudden these people suddenly became the kings and all of this stuff. This is still, we might think we don't live in an age of colonialism or age of empire. The Western media will make you think that you don't live in an age of empire or an age of colonialism. But actually, we are still very much in that same stage, and I think it's worse today than it has ever been historically when it was officially known as empire or colonialism. I think it's far worse because it's more insidious, and the tragedy is that people, because of their brainwashing by the mainstream media, don't even realize it. It's like when they talk about a frog or a lobster being cooked alive in simmering water, where the water is only slightly warm. The poor animal knows it's dying, but it doesn't know really, it doesn't feel like it's dying because it's nice and comfortable and warm. The reality is, this continues, this animal will be cooked and someone will eat it. And this is what is happening today to humanity. Humanity is being slow cooked alive by these devils, by these criminals, like the two in front of us on TV that I can see right now. And this will only go away if humanity collectively decide that we need to really jump and get out of this pot and take these people and throw them in the pot and turn the temperature up. This is the only solution, because these people don't understand anything else. They sit and they pander to each other, and they wave false flags and run around and say, oh yes, we're peace lovers and we want Nobel Peace Prizes and we want all of this. No, these people have no interest in peace. It's only about hegemony, and with America being the head of the hegemon. But it's okay, America is on its decline. It has never been weaker as an entity in history, and God willing, it will fracture soon. I vote for the secession movement in America, where all of the states split away from the central government. And this will happen. And of course, you can see in England, Brexit is in the process of disintegrating this country and losing it any credibility that it might have had. This same thing will happen in America, mark my words. It may not happen today or tomorrow, but it will happen soon. And this particular event will hasten that, and not just in America, but also in these little oil fields and shopping malls with flags, including Oman and Sudan and all of these that you mentioned. They will make peace, and they will find that they have bitten off something that is so unpalatable that they might laugh about the fate of Gaddafi or Saddam, but the same fate awaits all of these criminals.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, let me ask Jason. Shabir mentioned a fact, and that was the way, the manner, the modus operandi that the Trump administration has been treating this. We had the deal of century, for instance, and now we have this what President Trump is pushing to see, deals being signed by Arab states and Tel Aviv regime on normalization, and in both of those, when there's a conflict, there is a war, there is an argument, there are two sides to it, right? And Washington is now acting as a mediator. So where are the Palestinians? Palestinians are one side to this.
Well, the Palestinians are nowhere to be found because nobody set a place for them at the table. They were not welcome. They were never sent an invitation at all. They were not considered in any way, shape, or form. And I think that is demonstrated quite clearly by what the United States has done. As Hassan Ali said, if this was about protecting them, and this was about helping them, then why are the Palestinians so adamantly against this? I think it's very clear from that. And if you watch mainstream Western media, there seems to be no real acknowledgement that the Palestinians are actually against this. You get your 10-second soundbite by someone on the street, some kind of quick vox populi, but nothing significant that would really bring the story there. And instead, the U.S. media is concerned with the two official narratives. Trump is the greatest peacemaker in the world, and the other side, those opposed to him, but representatives of a different set of interests within the U.S. ruling class, are denouncing him for doing this just as a photo op, or perhaps if they have time left in their broadcast, mention the dismal human rights abuses of these countries that are signing these deals. But it seems the Palestinians are being left completely off. I mean, they're not even in the picture that's being presented. I've never seen a group of people that were being allegedly supported so great, yet you don't even really hear them speak. And it's only been media that has been alternative to the Western imperialist narrative, such as Press TV, where anything said by the Palestinians was even allowed to proceed. But I mean, this is it's so perfectly appropriate that this is the big Trump deal. This is the thing that's gonna, I guess, be his legacy as president, or the element that's going to get him reelected. That everybody knows what a deal with Trump means, and that is absolutely nothing. Just ask the DPRK what a deal with Trump means. Just ask any of the countless people who have sued him because of the deals that he has broken with other people over the decades, his own personal business dealings, people that he's ripped off, the people who went to Trump University and got completely scammed out of their money, which the president had to turn around and reach a settlement with those people. A deal with the U.S. Essentially, or a deal with Trump, means absolutely nothing, and that's kind of to a degree of what we're seeing right now. If the stated goal is to help the Palestinians, then this agreement here has about as much substance as everybody he's had business dealings with in the past.
Now, let me put the same question to Jason in Ontario. Jason, is this supposed to be President Trump's trump card? I mean, this normalization thing, getting some countries, Arab countries, on board to normalize ties with Israel, and as the Western mainstream media is portraying it differently, how much is it going to be helping him win a re-election?
Well, I think that remains to be seen. I think that he's just seizing on an opportunity. I think those of him in his base, his hardcore base, that are going to support him no matter what, even though he said that he would shoot somebody in the middle of the street, and they said they would still vote for him if he did that. So that doesn't really have to do anything to placate them. I think it's more trying to get people who might be now on their way to leaning away from him. I think U.S. politics is very polarized at this point. You either love Donald Trump and think he's God incarnate, or you think he's the devil. And there's certainly a good reason to follow the latter. But I think that the real serious battleground here, particularly with regards to the U.S. election, is the middle between the two. Those that are a little bit wavering, or maybe those who traditionally don't vote because they don't feel that their vote matters, and usually it
Hmm.
doesn't. But I think in this case, this could be an appeal to those people. And okay, look, okay, there's a lot of things about me you don't like, but look, I did the big piece in the Middle East, so you should like me. I did more peace than Obama did, because that it tends to be something that he is very highly focused on, even all these years later, is trying to undo anything Obama did, and anything he did do, try to one up it. And I think that that's what this is. I mean, this is more an ego trip for him than anything. He just wants to be able to say that he accomplished something. He's more interested in trying to put something on his resume than rather accomplish anything of substance. For him, it's always been about more how it appears rather than what it is, rather than, as we have seen with the whole Trump brand in general. Despite how many times he's filed bankruptcy, he still has this air of, I am the billionaire, I am the big success. Even his book, Art of the Deal, he didn't even write it. It was admitted to be a ghostwriter who put it together. It's all about image with him. He doesn't care, frankly, about anyone outside his own family, and that's only to concentrate his own wealth and power. So I would definitely see that this is very much an ego stroking, perhaps some kind of tactical thing to try to win over undecided voters, because I think that's really the only case. I don't think that anybody from the Trump base is going to be won over to the Democrats, and I don't think anybody in the Democrats is going to be
Hmm.
all won over to the Trump side. I mean, a great deal of the Democrat side is not even necessarily pro-Democrat, but anybody but Trump kind of mentality. So I think that there's a struggle over that undecided middle, or that wavering kind of middle, that would be uh, what would be needed to win the election in this case. I mean, the polls are coming up pretty close, like 53% for either way, 53-44. So it's going to be close, and so gaining as much of that middle ground as possible is certainly going to be very necessary for that.
Hmm. Turning to Ontario, Jason, how do you look at this? I mean, given what's happening and what a number of Arab states are doing, and President Trump is hoping and actually pushing for some more, actually, to follow suit. So, what's best for Palestinians to do? Of course, they have come together recently, and looks like this has got them united further than any time. For, like, we had a meeting last week between a couple of Palestinian factions. They never met in the past 19 years, and this kind of brought them together, and they're trying to somehow sort out their differences and do something about it.
Well, nothing brings people together more than mutual destruction. I think that's a pretty good way of putting it. Of course, people are going to be united in a situation like this because they're facing a common fate, and that's usually a pretty good unifier, is facing a united threat. I mean, this is phony threats have been used in the past on this same kind of scale. So when you have a real one like this, then obviously it's going to unite a lot of people. I think one of the important questions to ask here is. Uh, Palestine has done everything that it ever possibly could on peaceful grounds. And what has that accomplished? It hasn't accomplished very much, and many would argue nothing at all. A total resistance is all there could ever really be, because the barrel of the U.S. gun is pointed right at anyone who even dares speak up about the situation that Palestinians are facing, let alone even even daring to do anything about it. And it's amazing how we can see resistance fighters in Palestine, digging tunnels to smuggle weapons in to get basic supplies into the country as well, are showing more courage than all of these, Arab state leaders combined. I mean, that's pretty pitiful, that when the weakest and most vulnerable of men have more courage and conviction and moral standing than those with the most the most power, the ones with the possibly the least ability to do something about it, are the ones who are putting more effort than those who have the most ability to do something about it. I mean, it's not like something hasn't happened before. We remember the Arab-Israeli War from 1973. Not quite the full destruction, but it shows that some kind of cooperation can take place if there's a genuine, real desire to do so. But we don't see that from the Arab League citizens, and one by one they continue to fall, just as Gaddafi does, and the U.S. is not going to stop until it has complete and total supremacy over the Middle East, using proxy countries in order to do so. And that's exactly where this is going, an extension of U.S. power. And the Palestinians may be left with, really not much left. It's going to be straight up full on resistance that's going to be, already is completely necessary.